So my guest today comes from Oman, Sir Charles Shaw, CEO of Bondoni. Bondoni is the international investors' partner of choice for company formation and sponsorship. And they cover specialized services such as business setup, governance, corporate PRO, visa services, and so many more. As they nicely put it, one call, all solutions. Charles, what would be your superpower?
How many? Am I only allowed one?
Please.
I think the key one is either tenacity or courage. I think they both go in the same breath, especially as a businessman. But to back up those, I think openness is key. But the communication to demonstrate the tenacity and courage is also an absolute key pillar as well.
Excellent. Charles, if a new corporate client approached you with a service initiation, what would be that single phrase that you would use to describe Bondoni?
I think you've already said it better than me in your earlier introduction. But no, Bondoni is very much recognized as Oman's leading company formation and business setup company for international investors in Oman. Essentially, we provide a one-stop shop, as you rightly say, to set up the company on the company registration, the visa management and business introductions. And then as soon as that limited liability company has been established, we then set up continuity services, which includes the key things that any international organization wants, such as recruitment of Omanis and expats, such as looking for real estate. We have real estate brokerage. They can also outsource all their HR to us. So we're really offering a very focused boutique service to international companies to get them up and running and grow as fast as possible.
Excellent. What would you say was the hardest business challenge that you have been confronted with?
Without question, last year. The COVID-19, there's no doubt about it. In 38 years of business, that was the most challenging. And I think potentially one of the more rewarding, because it wasn't just COVID that hit Oman and Bondoni. We also had the death of the last Sultan who'd been here on the throne for 50 years. We had the oil and gas meltdown. The new laws that changed in Oman, which directly threatened the existence of Bondoni. But in the short term, we really focused on helping our existing clients, which we were able to do both operationally and financially, because we're on the ground here all the time. We have got extremely good networks to be able to help in those areas. But at the same time, we had to broaden and wanted to broaden our services, which, unlike a lot of companies who were contracting, we invested. We invested in people and associates. We invested in marketing. We broadened our services. Fortunately, those investments and everything else have paid off. And we're now in a much better situation now than we were before COVID, ironically enough.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Great news.
We're very fortunate.
Yeah, you are. Charles, I know you're a former graduate student of Sandhurst Royal Military Academy and former major in the British Army. What is the brief story of your arriving in Oman, settling in, and starting a business there?
I originally came to Oman in the 80s, as you rightly say, as a major on secondment to the Oman Army, and spent 2 of my last 10 years in Oman, which were unforgettable and fantastic. But then left the British Army in the mid-80s, and I've been in business for the last 38 years, but always kept in touch with Oman because of the friends that we generated then. Bought a house here 15 years ago, and then decided to settle down here as our own home about 8 years ago. And one of the reasons why we came here was to set up a very major international UK training company. And I was going to be I was the CEO of that business, and the aim was to set the company up. And in that time of setting it up, I learned how not to do it. I learned how not to set up businesses. I've still got the scars on my back to prove the problems and issues that we actually had. And I thought then that it was a great opportunity which nobody else in this country had a business set up. Equally, though, there were many similar companies in the UAE, Cyprus, Singapore, the UK. So I benchmarked from them, and I then set up Bondoni to help international companies set up and guide them through the complications of setting up here in this country. And it's worked very well. And those partners, those people that I benchmarked with, back 4 or 5 years ago when I set up Bondoni, are now my own partners. So we've got a global reach, and we work very closely together throughout internationally. So that's basically how it all happened.
A very, very nice story. Charles, I know you like scuba diving and desert enduro rides, Jebel bashing, right?
Desert bashing and Jebel bashing. Yeah.
Do you have a story of such a trip, such an adventure that went wrong?
I think even the best of us, when we go into the desert, we all get stuck or we get lost, and there are always embarrassing issues there. But I think the one that always I remember was back in the 80s when I was a soldier. It was at first light. We were trying to negotiate our way through a fairly tough part of the terrain in a Land Rover, and I had 6 Omani soldiers in the back with me. And I was determined to go one route. They didn't want me to, but I went that route, and consequently turned the Land Rover over with all of my Omani soldiers in it. Fortunately, they were all okay, but I was determined to go through that area. So wisely, they decided not to be in the Land Rover when I was trying to drive it through. And the inevitable happened. I turned that Land Rover again for the second time. So that was a bit of a disaster, but there was a huge number of chuckles and laughter from the Omanis. None of us
told you so. I told you so.
Exactly, I told you so. Anyway, we went around another way, got to our destination safely, and I still had a lot of Omanis to this day still remember that story.